So hello, everyone, for putting up with my issues today. I got a remote access thing going on. So you won't be able to see my face, but I want to welcome you all here to the annual board meeting. This one, we have a lot of business to take care of, so we're going to try to keep it moving. Wanted to also acknowledge that we just completed the Native American month here in the United States, and what a joy we had. We had powwows, we had quite a few craft bazaars going on in our area, and family get-togethers. It was a wonderful time, and I hope everyone got to enjoy that piece as well. Zoom etiquette, normally we would ask that everyone show their faces so that we can see them, but we're not going to be able to do that with me today. So thank you for understanding that piece. Then we also have our roll call that I need to get going. Don't see where I have everyone's names. Can you pull that up for me? I'll go down the line here. So I
email this morning that I sent you.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. And I'm not.
Teresa, are you able to do the roll call, Molly?
Yeah, I can. Let me.
That.
Okay, so Molly was here, Kathy, Carlene Anders. Nope. Dale Anderson. Deb Murphy.
Here.
Jesus Hernandez. Ken Turner.
Here.
Ramona Hicks. I thought I saw her.
Present.
Okay. Ray Eichmeyer. And Rebecca Davenport.
Here.
Rosalinda Kibbe.
I'm here.
Senator Warnick.
Here until 2:30.
Okay. And then Dr. Tucky. Kat Latte.
Here.
Teresa Atkinson. Nancy Spurgeon.
Here, I will have to leave for just a little while at 2, and then I'll come back.
And then Peter Morgan. I think he's on vacation. And that is it for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Everyone has the agenda in front of them, and if they feel that there's a conflict of interest at this time, I ask that you would declare that conflict of interest. And hearing none at this time, if anytime during the rest of the board meeting you feel like it is a conflict of interest, what you're hearing, please let us know, and we will go ahead and acknowledge that in the minutes that you are declaring. Also, as any of the guests, if you can put your name and organization in this chat box. Also, the staff, we invite you to put your names in there. It's a way of us keeping track of everyone who's on this call. I also ask if there's, from any of our guests, a public comment that they would like to make. I saw Linda here.
Hi, this is Manuel from Columbia Valley Community Health. Just a clarification on my end. I wasn't quite sure. I'm replacing Jesus Hernandez's position on the board. I didn't know if that was official as of this meeting or if I'm still needing to be approved. I'm asking because I know there's a lot of action necessary from the board, and I didn't want to vote if it wasn't appropriate.
I would say give us
it looks like about 1:15.
So,
Yeah, Ken Sterner will be handling about 1:15.
so generally elections are for the start of next year during the annual meeting. So Jesus would finish his term at the end of December and you would start January 1. And Linda, that would be the same for you. I know that Kathy and you are both on this call.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you. And we haven't had a chance to look over the agenda. Now I ask for approval of the consent agenda, which includes pages 1 through 15 of your board packet. And once everyone has felt comfortable with the minutes from November meeting, the monthly financial report, we have acronyms in there so that we try to limit people not knowing exactly what we're talking about, and including acronyms each month or each meeting, as well as the formal agenda. We may be doing some changes to the agenda. We have some people who may be dropping off. So we're thinking that at least the partner agreement, we're going to slide down farther, replacing that then with the ED contract. But we need anything that has board decision forms attached, we have quite a few, that we want to raise those up so that we catch people as we still have a quorum. So I'm still asking, is there an approval of the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. This is Judy.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions at this time? Last minute questions as to the agenda, anything that's showing on it? Hearing none. We have a motion to approve and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed would be nay. And abstain. The minutes will show also our absentees, and motion carried and approved. Thank you. We're going to now have acting executive director, John Chapman, with his.
Holly, I'm gonna recommend we do
Acting.
that as well, so we have the opportunity to cover any motions. We have 10 board members present. We need 9 for a quorum, so but I just want to be careful to make sure we have the appropriate number as we get through, because I know if you have to drop off early. So I actually want to recommend we go down to the elections and turn it over to Ken.
Okay. Yeah, and I will go ahead and we'll move you down to at the end of the meeting, and you can help end. All right.
Okay.
Ken's.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Molly. Let's go ahead then and get started. This is our annual elections. And if you look before you in your packet on page 17, you should also see the list of the slate of members, the board members, the MCO representatives, the executive committee slate, the finance committee, and the nominating committee. John, I just have one clarification. I'm hoping can we nominate all of these at once, or do they have to be individual by sector or whatever?
I think someone can move to approve the slate of officers. You need to open any of these positions, or at least open up the executive committee positions for nominations while you are at the meeting.
Sure. Okay. So with that in mind, I would then at this point we'll open up nominations for the current board member election slate. And is there anything from the floor or anyone that would like to make a nomination?
This is Ramona. I would like to make a motion to accept the election slate.
Okay, there's been a motion to accept the election slate. Is there a second?
This is Nancy Spurgeon. I will second.
All right, we've got a first and a second to approve the motion for the board member election slate. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed is nay. Is there any abstentions? Congratulations to our new board members. That would be Peter and Linda and Senator Warnick and Manuel. Thank you very much for joining us as well. And so with that, moving on then, we will go ahead and start looking at the executive committee slate. And that executive committee is currently Molly and Dell and Rosalinda and Deb. And are there any other folks on there that we would like to nominate for the executive committee? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion again.
That's fine. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Very good. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed is nay. Any abstentions? And congratulations again. Thank you very much. Okay. John, do we need to do the same with the finance nominating committee? And what about the MCO representative?
I think the MCO representative would technically have been folded into the last motion, so the first
Okay.
one, so I do not think so. I would say, yes, you do need to do it for committees.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry, John, I lost you on my cell phone.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes, you do need to do it for the committees as well.
Okay, all right. So we'll go on then to the finance committee. And on our finance committee right now, we have as our slate, Rosalinda Kebby, Peter Morgan, Teresa Atkinson. And again, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a
Nancy,
motion.
I move that we approve the finance committee.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a favors, say aye.
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 And opposed is nay. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much and welcome to the Finance Committee. And last but not least, for the nominating committee, we have myself, Ken Sterner, and we also have Carleen Anders and Senator Warnick. And with that, I would be looking for the same signs. Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion for the nominating committee be accepted.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed is nay. And any abstentions? All in favor, and sounds good. We are through now all the committees, all the boards, and we have a new slate of officers. And it sounds like we're going to be starting this next month. Is that correct, John?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
so-
also,
Just all as well, Manuel, Linda, I know Maddie is not on today. We'll be reaching out and connecting for everyone. We're going to be sending out the board meeting request this week so that it's on everyone's calendars. The first meeting is February 6th. And so you will see that coming up. But for all the new board members, we will be scheduling time over the next month just to do an orientation, get you guys up to speed, find some time for you to connect with staff as well if you have questions for specific staff. And so be on the lookout for this. I know you might have holiday plans, but we will get it done in December or early January.
that's fine. And I
And
just
then
want
the
to
board
say,
members who are stepping down, I wanted to just thank the board members who are stepping down for all of your hard work. It's been a lot this last year, and I thank everyone for every minute that they have given us and every bit of expertise they've brought to the table. And I will be reaching out to everyone who's coming off the board and get a final survey out of them and see how I can improve this organization going forward. Thank you, Ken. Go back to you.
and I would just like to add to that, Molly, I'd like to thank Carleen and Senator Warnick. We've gone through a number of meetings, and also John and his staff as we've sorted through this whole process. It's actually At first I was thinking, well, we should be able to zip right through this. I'll tell you what, it was not as easy as we thought it was going to be. And I want to thank Carly and Senator Warnick for their making sure that they show up at every meeting and put in their 2 cents, and for all the help that they provided and put in the effort they put into this. So thank you. I think we're done.
The only other thing we have, Ken, we also have a bylaws change.
Yes, I was gonna ask. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I was gonna just walk the board through this. So at the last board meeting, we had made a motion to approve adding the elected official seat to the board, so moving it from 20 to 21. We also decided at that current moment to pause making any changes to the Hispanic seat and the consumer seat, because we wanted to evaluate our board more fully before we bring any additional recommendations. We are also pausing on filling the Confluence Health seat, the second one, because of that discussion as well. And so that work will be brought forward to the board over the next month or two. Our team is going to take on doing a board skills and compensation survey this next month to really look at what our demographics of the board are, what our skill sets are, and how that might turn into a different recommendation. But what we do need to do is ratify within the bylaws the changes that we made from the local elected official seat. So really, if you go to the bottom of page 22, in your board packet, you will see at this current moment, we are changing the board to really go from a maximum of 20 to 21 and no less than 11 to 12. So we're just upping those min and max numbers by 1. If you scroll to page 23 and to on the chart, if you go to F for elected officials, what you're seeing is we're adding 1 local government. So it can be open to both county commissioners or city mayors, and then calling out 1 specific to state government as well. And so these are really, I know you have the full bylaws, but these are the 2 primary changes. And the bylaws to be in alignment with what was approved in regards to adding the local elected official seat at the last board meeting. So what we need is, if you scroll back up to page 19, is just what we want to do is have the board motion to make those changes to the bylaws. And Kathy, you have your hand raised.
John, will you be changing, if you could go back to the page with the number of days on it for just 1 second? You'll be changing the text then up there to 12.
Oh, yes, perfect.
Oh, thank
Sorry
you.
about that. I appreciate Kathy's detail.
I know I'm gonna miss her so much. I'll just randomly send you documents to revise.
So with the amendment from Kathy, what we would need is a motion on the table to approve those adjustments to the bylaw so that it can be in alignment with what we approved at the last meeting.
So John, just a point of clarification here. In this case, I'm willing to make that nomination, but I'm not clear whether I'm doing this or Molly's doing this at this point.
You can do it at this point.
Okay. Well, at this point, then I will refrain from doing that at this point. I'll ask somebody else to make the nomination.
This is Molly, and I asked for a nomination or
A motion.
approval.
Motion, I
of
beg your pardon.
Board motion. A board motion to add 1 additional local elected official seat, amending the bylaws to read as such.
Thank
This is
you, Molly.
Ramona. I'll make a motion.
Great, we have a
Thank you.
first and a second. Is there any additional questions at this point? Hearing
Hearing
none?
none, all those in favor? I'll let you do it.
It's okay. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed is nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you, Molly.
Aye.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Kathy.
Aye.
Thank you, Molly.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions? All right. Thank you all very much. And Molly, I think I'm done now.
You are done now, Tim.
All right, I hate stomping all over your parliamentarian.
I'm on the phone too, Molly, so I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Up next is the 2023 budget. Sarah, I open the floor to you.
So here we're just looking at approving the budget. We did some refinement from the retreat that we all were at. We got the compensation settled with the executive committee, and we are asking everyone to make a motion and approve the budget. So if you can scroll down, please. I think the restricted funds were a different motion. Can we go up?
That one's right, go down. So the restricted funds were on the agenda first, but we can do the budget right now, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
So if
So-
you guys can tell me which page to jump to, that would be great, because once I'm screen sharing, I can no longer see the front page.
Oh, you got it. Thanks, Carolyn. I appreciate it. I needed that info. Okay, so we're looking at an admin rate of 13% or less and a total overall revenue of 3.29 million and approval of total expenditures of 7.457 million. As information to the packet, we have included the breakout by department and the expenditures over the years. So as you can see, we are expending more on the contracts to support the programs. So if you could keep scrolling, Carolyn. Yep. Oh, can you just, there we go. Thank you so much. As you can see, the expenditures versus revenue have flopped. This is intentional as we've gotten the programs off the ground and some of the contracts are now in payment mode. We do anticipate this in 2023 to continue. We are expecting some new funding to come through around July, and we anticipate doing a budget amendment at that time when we have solid numbers. Can you please go to the next page? As was discussed in the retreat, we wanted to make sure that everyone could see how the funds were being expensed and expensed by county. Now, please know we took this information off the Washington portal, finance portal. And we wanted to make sure that everyone in doing this approval process had kind of the breakouts and the impact that these funds that we're expending are doing. Can you please go to the next slide? This is the overall percentage by partner type. So as you can see, we were in 2008, we were really heavy clinical, and that is now flopping to more of the community-based organizations. We expect to continue to see that shift continue, but there will always be a clinical portion. Next slide, please. These are the funds that we are asking to be restricted on a different motion. So I'm going to stop right here because we'll come back to this. We also have the expenses broken out in a little bit more detail, which was requested of us, down to kind of not just the mission that we have, but the individual contracts within those missions. So for behavioral health, as you can see, we've broken it down to Hope Squad, which is restricted, harm reduction, recovery programs, and so on. So I really want to give everybody a few minutes to just digest this, and then would appreciate if we could take a motion to the vote.
Rosalind, I see you're on muting. Do you have a question?
I was going to ask Sarah, what time frame are those expenditures expected to occur? Is that the total of spending for 2023?
Those are actually what has already been expended through 2022.
No, so this is the breakdown for 2023. This
Oh,
should-
I'm so sorry. Thank you, John.
So there was a request, since the program line item is so large, a little bit more detail behind that. And so this is kind of that next layer down of detail. So within that, what is it broken into key buckets and themes?
Thank you, John.
There's a question from Kat wanting to know what's included in the admin.
So admin has the community review committee, but admin also covers John's portion of salary. Items that are necessary to continue the running of the office. So the rental of the office. We have some basic supplies. We have Morgan's time, so media relations, and Teresa's time, all booked to admin right now. And then as those times are identified that they're doing program work, we will journal or allocate that out to the program. But for budgeting purposes, we have that in admin at the moment.
And Kat, you'll see that a good chunk of it is staffing, as well as any kind of contracting support that's more specific to strategy development, board development, internal strategy support, or just basic contracting services we need for operations. So like an example of one is the accounting services has gone up this year because we're actually contracting with Clifton Larson Allen to provide CFO level support. So because of that, it's increased, but we're not really at a point where we would be hiring our own CFO. And so that you'll see that contract go up, but that would be administrative specific.
Great. That's helpful. I was just trying to figure out sort of what within the expenditure lines that was being set forth for admin versus, and I think that's a useful distinction too of the what is included in admin, and then that there is staffing costs allocated to program in the I just think that's a useful distinction as we move forward into budgeting and considering, because it was a question that came up actually at another ACH related to budget breakdown and admin and programming. And so I think that that's a useful distinction, and potentially moving forward, it may be helpful to understand maybe at a finance committee level, the idea of sort of what staffing is allocated within program space versus admin.
Yeah, we can bring that to a finance committee. That's perfectly fine. We have it all broken down. And I would say, we're budgeting a little conservatively to admin. So if we had a question on if something was programmatic, we're starting it with admin until we get a little bit more detail. So the expectation, as long as all the expenditures hit, that we'd actually see a slight decrease in the admin rate by the end of the year.
Thank you. And also really appreciated the slides and the breakdown of the region and provider. And so that was super helpful to take a look at. So thank you.
Other questions? Can we scroll up to page 35 then and scroll down just to the proposal? And Sarah, I will turn it back over to you.
Yeah. So what we're looking for is a motion and approval to move forward with the budget, or feedback on any changes that might be wanted.
This is Rosalinda Kibbe. I want to make the motion to approve the 2023's budget as presented.
This is Kathy, and I'll second it.
With a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Thank you for passing this motion. The next motion I'd like to bring to the table is the motion for restricted funds. These funds are held within the balance sheet, and it's projected for just one type of program, isn't the right word, but one type of cause that we're trying to fund for multiple years. And there's been several motions made, some unofficial, some official. We're looking to just kind of wrap that up with this budget year with an official set of approval so we can get them listed in the software. This allows for staff to do multi-year contracting and do some long-term strategy with cash flow. So Carolyn, if you could scroll back to the restricted slide. I'm sorry, I forgot the number. There we go.
Page 30, well, this one, go to page 34, actually, please.
34.
That's the official document.
Yep. So I just wanted to note that we have in here what has been approved or just recommended, what has been spent so far in 2022. This is the planned expenditures off the budget for 2023 and what the remaining balances we anticipate at the end of 2023. Does anybody have any questions on any of the specific restrictions we're hoping to capture?
And I'd call out, the primary rationale to bring this to the meeting now is to ratify things that the board has decided in the past, but we haven't really pulled out and shared restricted funds in a organized fashion. So the goal would be that the board sees this update as we're going along. And I know there was a question even at the board retreat about what funds we had available, and this kind of signifies what funds we physically have committed to projects and work over the course of the year, and you'll see this then filtered into annual budget projections as well.
Okay, hearing no comments or questions, we would like to have a motion to approve the restricted funds.
Is Nancy Spurgeon, I so move.
This is Ramona, I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Sarah.
Mhm.
All right, and now at this time, the Finance Committee report with Rosalinda. Rosalinda Kibbe.
Good afternoon, everyone. On page 42 of your packet is the board action form to discuss the North Sun and the NCACH investment policy. We are requesting your approval of this policy. I want to thank my fellow Finance Committee members who are not here with me today. They are Teresa Atkinson and Peter Morgan. We did spend some time on this, and I spent even more time on this outside of the Finance Committee meeting, making sure we went over this policy in depth. It is a 15-page policy, and it does list out all of the specifics regarding how these investments are to be handled. I think that for the board, I don't know how familiar you are with investment policies, but this really outlines how the company that we will choose to handle our investments will handle our investments, and what John and Sarah's role will be in this work with the investments. So like I said, the finance committee reviewed this in depth, went through and things like that. And so with that, we are going to be requesting your approval of this policy today. But for the background, the North Central ACH has traditionally held its funds in the Washington State Financial Executor portal that was provided as part of the Washington State Healthcare Authority Medicaid Transformation Project. This portal was used to pay out partners and contractors for deliverables in their MOUs and contracts. While at the Chelan Douglas Health District, NCACH did not complete its own investing since any funds removed from the WAFE portal and expended through the health district would have had an additional 15% hosting fee attached. So we pretty much left all the money where it was and didn't move it too much. In January 2022, NCACH separated from Chelan Douglas Health District and managed its own accounting and bank records. As part of that separation, the NCACH has considered how it can invest in the funds available in its bank account to generate interest that can then be reinvested into our community. In Q3 of 2022, NCACH staff in partnership with Clifton Larson Allen put together an investment policy. That policy was reviewed by the NCACH Finance Committee, who is recommending its approval to the board. So, who looked at the policy? Who has questions? Anybody? Senator Warnick, did you have a question? No?
No, thanks. I
Okay.
think I got it. I think I got it.
Now, John did clarify down under the impact and opportunity section of this form that we did have some interest gained while the funds have been in the portal, but just not much. And what we want is the opportunity to designate certain monies to be invested in certain places to hopefully make more interest in the future. Now, we all know the market isn't doing very well right now. The other thing I think I need to clarify is that out of the funds that will be invested, the majority of them are going to be in what would be more of a fixed type, meaning that they are not susceptible to a lot of the drastic change that you're seeing in the market right now. And I think we're doing, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, are we doing an 80-20 or my notes with me right now?
So we're starting with 90-10 to hopefully be 80-20 by July.
Okay, so we're starting out very conservative, meaning the majority of our funds are going to be kept in a very conservative, non-aggressive investment arena. It's not going to be up for much risk based on the market changes. There you can see the timeline as well, December 5th. Today, we would like approval of the investment policy. Later here in December, they're going to release an RFP for an investment firm. In January, the Finance Committee will review the RFPs and selected successful bidder. In January, February, we will enter into an agreement with an investment firm. And February, March, we would invest the funds into the accounts. Any questions? Wow, no questions. Okay, well then I will entertain a motion to approve the NCACH investment policy.
So moved by Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Deb. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that has been passed, and thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, let's see. The next action item that I have for you is, page 59 of your packet. We discussed this at a previous meeting that we would like to move to an accrual-based accounting process. And in the form there, the background, it explains that in 2017, the NCACH was required to establish itself as an independent entity to deliver services as part of the Washington State Medicaid Transformation Project. At that time, accounting services were under the Chelan Douglas Health District, and it was decided for simplicity to stick with cash-based accounting. At that point in time, NCACH was not managing any other funding sources and was planning to dissolve after the waiver was completed. NCACH started its future strategic planning in 2020 and has since continued to contemplate transitioning to accrual-based accounting to support the long-term objectives of the organization, but had continued to operate under cash-based accounting without enough emphasis to transition. At the October 2022 board retreat, the importance of seeking other funding sources was discussed, and it was decided to reevaluate the transition as well as form a finance committee. The finance committee met in November with one of its objectives was to review the transition and is recommending that NCACH make the transition to accrual-based accounting. The proposal is to approve the transition of NCACH from cash-based accounting to accrual-based accounting with the start date of January 1st, 2023. The impact of this an opportunity is that it will allow the NCACH to be in alignment with the GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, yes, and change the financial reports, including the board reports, to be in alignment with accrual-based accounting practices. The timeline for this work would be to finish cash-based accounting for the calendar 2022 and present and set up on December 31st. Yeah, that would end the year. That's when our financial year ends. And we would set up a system to transition to accrual-based accounting January 1, 2023. And in January 1, 2023, we would begin the accrual-based accounting. And this would all be fun work that Sarah gets to do for us. She's super excited about it. Do you want to add any comments, Sarah?
I really just want to stress that most grant funding, which is revenue we're hoping to obtain, requires you to port under GAAP. It helps make all companies competitive together and gives it a shared transparency platform. So that's the major push to set us up to get, to go after a bunch of grant dollars.
Does anybody have any questions about the accrual-based accounting?
Hey, Rosalinda, this is Ramona. Having no CFO background, but knowing that it's drives my CFO crazy, the accrual-based, but only because of the contractual adjustments. We're not going to be dealing with any of that, though.
No.
Okay.
No.
Sounds good to me.
We will not be offering any contracts out with discounts, Ramona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wait. No.
Anybody else? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the transition of the NCACH from cash-based accounting to accrual-based accounting.
So moved.
Thank you, Senator Warnick. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Deb. Any discussion about the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are any opposed? All right, thank you all. I believe that ends my portion of the meeting.
And Molly, before
Thank
you
you.
jump
Thank you,
in,
Leslie.
I just want to say thank you to the Finance Committee and Sarah and the CLA team. We've just the transition and the work we've done to our finances over the course of this next year and all the joy and work we're going to be able to do over the course of this next 2023 year. It's just great to see that shift and that move financially and financial infrastructure for NCACH. I think it's going to be really, really beneficial in the future. So thank you all for the work you've done on that. Over to you, Molly.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and move up the executive director contract piece so that we can get this final voting piece in. So if Teresa could put up the contract.
Okay, just a second. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know if Caroline has it, so because you emailed it to me.
Yeah.
So let me grab that here.
And if anyone has to take a short break, go ahead and we can take a 3-minute break, but only 3 minutes. Oh, Caroline. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so this had been sent out earlier. I only had one response, and that was from Ken. His concern was if our attorney had had a chance to review this. And actually, I've been working with her for the last maybe 6 weeks, getting this finalized, working with the executive committee as we have reviewed it and made our recommendations. The final piece that we had to put in was on Friday was John's salary, because it is a part of the contract. And so I waited until we approved the budget just now, so that now we have John's actual salary included in that. And that's a full compensation package. The second question that Ken had was, is this a standard contract for other ACHs? And we did absolutely adopt this from another ACH. We haven't really created many of our own contractual forms when there have been others that we could look to and use their verbiage. So this did that, and it's a Crystal Frost from Davis Arnell Law Firm. John wanted to let you all know. That is our attorney. So I've been working with Crystal for quite some time. Any other questions though? I didn't receive other questions.
Hearing none, Molly, thank you for addressing those questions. I appreciate that. And with that in mind, I will call for the question.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the executive director contract? Would that be you still, Ken?
Go ahead. Yes, I'll be happy to.
I'll
Thank you, Ken,
second it.
Thank you, Senator Warnick. Any questions, further questions, last moment? Now, I do not have a board decision form on this, so the minutes will supersede that. We will get a resolution number attached. And hearing no questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. All right, John, show up for work tomorrow, bright and early. Crystal.
Well, I should say thank you all for that. It's always nice to have your contract approved.
Yes, yes.
I haven't been concerned. I just know this has been the formal process of the decision that's been made at the October meeting. So we just needed to get it all finalized with Davis Arneal.
And as I look back on the work that we did in 2022, we have created this new organization, separate from the old, while, as Linda says, we're flying this airplane. It's, yeah, we have done a lot of work. I want to congratulate everyone for all of your patience on this important work. We're not quite done. We still have a couple pieces that I'll follow up in the next few weeks. I have an employee survey and a survey of John for his thoughts on his previous term here. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for their time. And if people have to leave, I understand. It's almost 2 o'clock. That was my TikTok time, but I had to get people done.
So Madam Chair, I'm not raising my hand because I know you can't see it, but this is
Right.
I would just like to compliment all of you. The stability that I've seen in the ACH, it's remarkably different than a lot of the other ACHs to be able to have the continuity we've had. Of course, we've had some people move and changes on the board, but that's normal and to be expected. But I just really think you guys are a fantastic board, and I think we have great staff, and I just wanted to compliment you. I'm proud to have been part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. That means so much. All right. I'll go ahead and excuse those who did need to leave at 2, but also invite Caroline up, SWG Partner Agreement, and John. So Caroline and John. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me go to the correct page in the. This should look familiar because we took a look at this partner agreement or a draft last month. And we wanted to circle back with this revised version. And just as a reminder, John and I wanted to remind you all about some of the major feedback we got from all of you after our breakout sessions last month. I think some of the main observations and great ones is that people wanted to see the distributed leadership language come through some more. And then they also observed that language around meaningful engagement of underrepresented populations or community engagement or community voice just wasn't really coming through either. There were a couple comments about, you know, how will smaller organizations be able to meet the commitments that we had listed. And then under the impact section, the first bullet we had was very MTP healthcare centric. So we kind of wanted to walk you through really quickly some of the main changes. Nothing much has changed on this first page. The primary changes are in this section, how we create thriving communities. And these 2 opening paragraphs have been added as a way to bring the distributed leadership language in and community engagement and engaging underrepresented populations in our work. So hopefully that is an improvement that is responsive to your comments. I'll just pause a little bit here to make sure you get a chance to read at least these first 2 paragraphs since those changed. Hopefully I gave you enough time. I will keep scrolling then to the section on member commitments. And again, here, there was one minor change in the prior version. There was a bullet or a bolded item on contributions. And that language has kind of been shifted more generally into this opening paragraph. So just highlighting that we understand that partners will contribute time, talent, and other resources, and that all of our partners are going to come to this work with unique constraints and capabilities, right? Some are going to be able to contribute more than others, and that's just fine. We want to meet our partners where they're at. There's no minimum requirement to be part of our member network. The last quick change is just under our impact. We worked on this first bullet so that it's less healthcare centric. And then we also added that second bullet that you see here. Groups that have been confined to the margins feel that they belong, that their contributions are valued, and that they are shaping the decisions that affect them. So those are the main changes. And again, we really hope that they were responsive to your major comments last month. And I think it was Peter who noted that this document really feels like it's really an invitation to our partners into levers 1 and 2 mostly, and that in some ways measuring and tracking well-being and then identifying and advancing opportunities for collective action. It may be that we need to specify what that means a bit more through contracts and MOUs as we work with our member network to figure out what we want to accomplish together. So this partner agreement is really like an invitation. And then obviously there's going to be a lot more that needs to be fleshed out. And that's kind of part of the fun that we're going to start next year as we start introducing this agreement to our partners. So John, I think you were going to take it from there and talk about next steps.
Yeah, so what we are doing is we have a strategy work group meeting on Wednesday, December 7th. So this coming meeting. So what we really want from the board members is to give this another read through, if you haven't done it as part of the board packet. And really, if there is anything that really sticks out to you that you still have a level of concern around or question on, please email me and we can bring those kind of questions to the strategy work group meeting. So I know it would be short notice, but if you could email me by this Wednesday morning, I would be able to bring some of those questions to the strategy work group at Wednesday's meeting. If it doesn't come until later this week or next week, that is okay. To us, again, like Caroline said, this is an invitation and the start to building out this network. The strategy work group really is going to be looking at what our vision is next year. What is our plan to more from really developing this compact to making the network implementationable? How will we look at rolling out this partner agreement to partners across the area? And I know there was a number of questions at the last board meeting about some of those specific implementation questions. And that's really something we're going to be digging into over these next few months. We recognize that we don't have every single answer or question answered or anything in that regards, but we also know that this is really a co-creation process. And so as the questions come up, we will be working together to answer those with our partners. But as Caroline said, this is an invitation into the network. And with that invitation, the assumption is that some of these levers will be co-created with those partners. So on Wednesday, we'll be talking about what is the future of the strategy work group next year? Is it really moving now to support this implementation process of the network and helping guide some of the strategy around the network in more detail? And then what are some of the first steps we would take to roll this out? So again, the primary ask for board members really is, read through this one more time and send me, anything that stands out as a concern. If there's anything even, I will always take things that excite you as well. It doesn't always have to be critique. So if there's something you would say, I love this, don't ever lose this over the course of the next year, because you're so excited about it, please email that too, because sometimes as we go through implementation, we need to remember those things that we really valued at the start so that we can always go back and focus on those as well. We aren't asking for board, one point of clarification, we're not asking for the board to move to adopt this or anything. We just want the board to be supportive of this agreement moving forward. And if you have, again, that's why if you have any concerns, let us know. And the strategy work group will be really working to finalize this. Any questions?
I think we've had some really good conversations as a board. And I think that retreat was really helpful with having things, you know, the little boards and going around those and putting all the little pieces together. So I think with time, it's just going to get more refined. And so I'm glad those conversations are being held.
And, you know, the one thing I would say is, I know it's a 4-page document, but again, to those board members who have been on the strategy work group and have been part of these conversations, there's a lot of work that's gone in behind this document, looking at different models across the nation in conjunction with community initiatives and better focus, and discussing really what are some of those key levers we really want to focus on as an organization. That's really gotten us to a network ideal and a network strategy that will make a big impact to the work that we do in our community. So this, as a board, you've really refined a good strategy for us to take forward over the course of the next few years. Ramona's laughing. I don't know if she's laughing at me.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
Do you have a comment though? You unmuted earlier.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just forgot.
Any questions or comments?
John, this is Molly. Are we going to start as soon as this gets officially rolled out, the community meetings? I know that I've been asked by our Chamber of Commerce here to do an update to the community on our work, because everybody's scratching their head and wondering what we're doing. So I thought that would be the perfect time to kind of introduce our community to this document, maybe.
I would say yes. I think we have, you know, there would be still some questions and answers to be had and worked out. And right now, I think that would be guided through the strategy work group. But we're at a stage where we can continue to update our community partners on the work that we're doing. We are at a stage where we can tell them about the compact and the network that we're building out. And that will also probably create additional questions that we continue to work together to answer. So I would say yes. And, you know, if anyone ever needs help or assistance, I am always happy to go out and speak to community groups or support you in putting materials together to go out and speak to community groups as well. Because, you know, one of the things we will ask of board members this next year is to really understand and become advocates for the work of NCACH. So outside of the board meetings, we would love it as you are out there speaking with partners to be able to share this information. And if you don't know and you have questions around it, to reach out to us and ask us those questions, and we can work through it so you can better explain it to your community members.
And when we send
Yeah, I'm
out the
excited
final,
to get the
Sorry,
thriving is what I just want to get out.
yeah. I think it's great. And when we send out the final agreement, we will have frequently asked questions attached to it. And there, a lot of those questions will answer things in a little more detail. Like, for example, Molly, if people at the Chamber of Commerce have specific questions about the levers in the FAQs, we describe what those mean a little bit more. Or if people are wondering, like, what does it mean to say yes, to be a member? Like, what do I get out of it? Like, all of those kinds of questions are going to be in the FAQ so that you're kind of prepared when people start to ask those questions, because they will, right? Like, this is an invitation, but then they're going to have more practical questions about, well, what does this mean? What now? What do I need to commit? So we'll make sure we give everybody as much as we know for now, but you know, we're not going to know everything. So we'll all be collecting questions along the way.
Thank you.
All right, I think if there's no further questions, we can move on.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline and John. Now I actually invite our executive director for his update, since we did move that from the beginning to the end. Now you're official. So, John, take it away.
Yeah, and I should have made the edit while I was putting the PowerPoint together, but it does technically say acting executive director. So I apologize for that. I will change it officially to executive director. But I sent Teresa a note, but I just wanted to comment and congratulate on everyone. We got through 7 board motions in 1 hour. And if you include Ken splitting it up into 4 additional motions, we might be around 10. So I think that in the world of board approvals is a new record as a whole. So thank you all, for being so diligent and prepared for that, and B, for being willing to go through that many board motions in an hour. I know sometimes business is not the most fun part of a meeting, but it is necessary to keep the organization going. Just another note before I forget, and I mentioned this earlier, Teresa will be sending out board meeting requests via Outlook this week. We are meeting every other month as a board next month, and we're going to do 2 board retreats throughout the month. So we are actually reducing our board meetings about 1/3 to 6 meetings and 8 retreats over the course of the year. We are extending the meetings from 1 to 4. Right now we meet 1 to 3:30, so we will have a little bit longer meetings during those times. And that's really a little bit of a caution to add some additional time since we are moving to every other month meetings. We'll evaluate throughout the year to see how things are going. And, we will look at this as an executive committee and make recommendations in the future. What I do want to do again, and Molly said this as well, I want to thank those board members who are transitioning off our board. So Jesus, Kathy, Rebecca, and Kat. I know Kat and Kathy are here, but thank you all, and including Jesus. Oh, Rebecca is here as well. Thank you all for what you've done over the course of the couple of years you've been on the board. It's really appreciated, and I recognize some of you, this is part of your work, but it's normally an additional duty as assigned as part of your work. So it's really volunteer for you guys to be part of this board. And, a lot of this work wouldn't be done if it wasn't for all of you being on this board. So thank you guys for the time and the commitment for the work that you've done. Welcome. I did not put pictures of the new board members on because you have them in the board packet, but again, welcome Manuel, Linda, Maddie, who wasn't able to make it today. And even though Peter got renominated, he's been on our board for the last couple of years. So welcome you 3 to the board, and I look forward to working with you all on the board over the course of this next year. And I'm sure, Jesus has shared a little with you, Manuel, as well as Kathy has shared probably a little bit with you, Linda. If not, maybe they're waiting until they get off the board to impart their knowledge to you as they hang up and move on to their next commitments in life. They're probably not reducing their workload, but just shifting it to other focuses. I was planning on keeping my executive director report short, so I do not have a long report today. So I may also be granting you the gift of time for this holiday season for the annual board meeting. So that is my Christmas gift to all of you, or holiday gift, or any gift you celebrate this holiday season. But there are a few things I did just want to highlight and call out on the team. One, I have up here a press release from the Community Health Plan or Community Health Network of Washington. And so I just wanted to shout out to Wendy Bresney for the work she's done in conjunction with Community Health Network of Washington to get a digital navigator grant from the Department of Commerce. And you will see just below the title, the quote that Wendy made in the article or the press release. The digital navigation services that this grant will fund meets a very real need in our community, said Wendy Bresney. So Wendy, congrats for getting your name posted in a press release and getting the NCACH out there, and both of you for the work that you have done around the digital navigator grant. You guys will hear more about this grant in the coming years as the implementation of that work gets kicked off. Nationally, I also wanted to just give another shout out to Joseph Hunter. Sometimes I think he is the NCACH celebrity and should be going around and signing papers and everything. But he actually, in the Narcan vending machine, got quoted in the Wall Street Journal. So our little area of North Central Washington is making it in big newspapers. And I think that's just a testament to the work that we are doing, and also a testament of being willing to be innovative and try and do new things. And so we'll send out a link to the Wall Street Journal article. I know you may need a subscription, so maybe we'll also try to send out a PDF for those who don't have a subscription. But again, just a shout out for the work that is going with the Narcan vending machines. I know Morgan, Sarah, and Joey are working on putting the data together into a more of a formalized report that was asked for at the last board meeting. So when that report is done, we will send it out to them as well. And then, I wanted to give an update on the work that has been going for the Community Review Committee. And so again, just a shout out for Caroline and Mariah, who've been putting together and working with the Community Review Committee to review both cross-sector collaboration applications and equity applications. And so you can see on the screen some of the key applications moving forward and the progress. So we're working with the OMAC Police Department Core Program and DADS Move to finalize MOUs. The Community Review Committee is supporting the Chelan Douglas Community Action Council and work they're doing in the community around a commercial kitchen. Around equity work, we're going to be funding and finalizing a program with the Children's Home Society or Children's. Wow, Children's Home Society. Sorry, I apologize. I really just had one of those forgetful brains for a moment. Children's Home Society and their Triple Point program. The Okanagan Community Action Council as well is working to do updates to their webpage to be more user accessible, ADA accessible, as well as working with Montessori and early education around supporting families with financial assistance. And then there are also 3 more applications coming through the door for Confluence Health, looking at being more equitable in their research designs, the OMAC Core Program, and Wenatchee Valley Tread. So more information will come on these and the updates of the programs themselves and how the work of the Community Review Committee is going. You will see some of this information in the December newsletter, and we'll also continue to bring this information back to the board. I don't have it on the slide, but Sarah Bates is also going to be launching our data measurement task force December 16th or 15th. You're just gonna have to unmute and correct me on this one. I should have the date and I don't.
Thursday, the 15th.
Thursday, December 15th. And so even as part of our network, as one of our primary pillars, Sarah's really been working to get into the community to identify those individuals, to look at how we can start working on that shared data measurement, look at what infrastructure is needed for data measurement in our community. We have been working and having multiple conversations with public health as well. And I know I shared at the last board meeting that the public health jurisdictions and ACH has met statewide to work out some of that tension. I can't promise that it's going to be fully worked out statewide, but locally we have a strong commitment across our 3 LHJs and us to make sure that what we do around this work is working together and that it's collaborated, that we collaborate together on this stuff so we reduce duplication. And honestly, that was it, because I wanted to make time for all of our approvals today. And I did not anticipate that rapid process of getting through them all. So I guess other than that, I would also just give a shout out for everything the board has done today, this year. I think sometimes it's hard to recognize how much work we've done in regards to the financial practices that we've set up, the work of the strategy work group, and getting the partner agreement established and working this next year to settle the norms around the partner agreement. And so it's just been a great transition that we've had with the board this year. I can't tell you how appreciative I am of all the work you have all put into this organization over the course of the year. And that also includes my team and the staff as well. And I feel very lucky and very confident in what we are going to be doing over the course of this next year. So I really, really want to celebrate what we've done in 2022 and just say that I really look forward to what we're going to be doing in 2023. We don't have the Medicaid Transformation Project Toolkit, and we've been able to move away from that work and really design as a community where our priorities and where our needs are and continue to design that. And that's really the sweet spot of where an ACH should be. And I feel like we're really getting there. So again, thank you all for the work you've done this year. And that is my ED update. Any questions?
Thank you, John. Thanks. All right, so as John said, we went through our whole agenda pretty quickly. I want to open the floor though to anyone who has any comments that they want to make, any public comments or staff, any board members have any news. We have just a couple minutes that we can open it up. Or we can also go ahead and just thank everyone here. I want to thank you all for a great year. Looking forward to our next board meeting, which is February 6th. And like John had said, it's going to be a little bit longer. I think they're also going to contain a lot more work involved in the pre-work for the board meetings and a lot of reading to catch up, a lot of program updates. So I encourage everyone to look that stuff over before we come to our meeting. And thank you all. Have happy holidays for everyone. Stay warm. We have a good 8 inches of snow here in Grand Coulee. So I'm just grateful that I only have one hill to slide down to get home. And hearing no more questions, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And it looks like it's at 2:21 today. Everyone gets an hour.
Thank you all for your time and happy holidays with an hour gift of time back to you.
Yay.
Thank you.